She kissed my cheek every Friday night and called me Dad. She poured my coffee and asked about my health. She smiled at me for 2 straight years, while draining every dollar I had ever earned. 2.9 million gone. My wife's last wish. Stolen, and she thought I was too old to notice. She forgot one thing. Before I was a grieving old man, I was the most decorated detective in Philadelphia, and I was about to open my last case. Thanks for being here. Before we go any further, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me where you are watching from. Let us see how far this story travels. And a quick note, some details in this story have been adjusted for privacy and storytelling purposes. Names and locations may be changed, but the core truth of what happened remains real. I remember the exact moment everything shifted. Not the moment I found out the money was gone. That came later. I mean the moment the detective in me opened his eyes for the first time in 8 years. It was a Friday evening in October, the kind of evening Philadelphia does best. Cool air rolling in off the Schuylkill River. The smell of dried leaves and chimney smoke drifting through the open kitchen window. I was in my house in Germantown, the row home Marie and I bought in 1984, back when this neighborhood was just starting to turn around. 3 bedrooms, a small backyard. A kitchen where Marie used to play guitar while I cooked Sunday gravy. 40 years in this house. Every wall held a memory. I was standing at the kitchen counter, looking for a prescription label. My blood pressure medication. The pharmacy had called saying my refill was ready, but I could not find the little orange bottle anywhere. I thought maybe I had thrown the old one away with the label still on it. So I opened the trash can under the sink and started digging through coffee grounds and paper towels. That is when I found it. A crumpled receipt. Not mine. I had not bought anything recently. I smoothed it out on the counter and read it. A jewelry store in Atlantic City. Bellini Fine Jewelers. $14,322. Paid in full. Credit card ending in 7741. The date was 2 days ago, Wednesday. The same Wednesday my daughter-in-law Vanessa had stopped by to drop off groceries. She always did that. Twice a week she came by with bags from Whole Foods, kissed my cheek, asked how I was feeling, then left. A 30-minute visit. Quick. Efficient. Loving. I thought. But this receipt did not belong to me. And it did not belong to Marie, because Marie had been dead for 2 years. The only person who had been in my kitchen on Wednesday was Vanessa. $14,000 in jewelry. From Atlantic City. Not Philadelphia. Why would she drive 90 minutes to buy jewelry she could find downtown? Unless she did not want anyone local to see the purchase. Unless she was hiding something, most people would have thrown the receipt away and forgotten about it. Most people would have assumed there was a reasonable explanation. A gift for a friend. A special purchase for an anniversary. Most people trust their family. Especially a daughter-in-law who calls them dad and brings groceries twice a week and handles all the boring financial paperwork so you do not have to worry about it. But I am not most people. I am Frank Moretti. 30 years with the Philadelphia Police Department. 22 of those as a detective in the Financial Crimes Unit. I have built cases against embezzlers, Ponzi schemers, insider traders, and every flavor of white-collar thief you can imagine. I have sat across interrogation tables from people who stole millions and smiled while they did it. I know what deception looks like. I know how it smells. And standing in my kitchen holding that receipt, something smelled wrong. I set the receipt on the counter and stood very still. My eyes moved around the kitchen the way they used to move around crime scenes. Slowly. Deliberately. Cataloging details. The Whole Foods bags Vanessa brought were still on the counter. Organic vegetables, free-range chicken, expensive coffee beans, a bottle of olive oil that cost $32. I knew, because I had looked it up once, curious about the brand. Who buys $32 olive oil for their father-in-law on a Tuesday afternoon? someone who is spending money that is not hers. I walked into the living room. Everything was exactly as it had been for years. My armchair by the window. The bookshelf filled with detective novels and engineering manuals from Marie's father. The fireplace mantel with three things on it that mattered. A framed photograph of Marie, smiling in her blue dress at Sophia's baptism. A small statue of Saint Michael that my mother gave me when I graduated from the police academy. And a wooden box. Dark mahogany. Brass hinges. Inside that box sat my Purple Heart, my Bronze Star, my police detective shield, and a folded American flag from my father's funeral. I looked at that box for a long time. The last time I opened it was the day we buried Marie. I pinned the Purple Heart to my suit jacket and wore it to the funeral, because Marie always said it was proof that I could survive anything. I had not opened it since. I had not needed to. I was retired. The detective was supposed to be sleeping, but detectives do not sleep when the numbers do not add up. And the numbers in my life had stopped adding up a long time ago. I just had not been paying attention. I had been too deep in grief, too grateful for Vanessa's help, too willing to believe that the woman who managed my finances and called me dad was doing it out of love. I picked up the receipt from the counter and carried it to my small office on the second floor. The room was barely bigger than a closet, a desk, a filing cabinet, a corkboard on the wall that I used to pin case notes on when I brought work home. The corkboard had been empty for 8 years. The filing cabinet had been locked for just as long. I pinned the receipt to the center of the corkboard. One receipt. $14,000. Atlantic City. Wednesday. It was not enough. Not nearly enough. But in 30 years of detective work, I learned one thing that never failed me. Every case starts with one detail that does not fit. One number that is wrong. One receipt that should not be there. This was mine. I sat down at the desk, pulled open the drawer, and found my old detective's notebook. Black leather cover, spiral bound, the kind I carried in my jacket pocket for 3 decades. I opened it to a fresh page and wrote the date at the top. Then I wrote 4 words underneath. Case file. Vanessa Clark. The detective in me was awake. And once he wakes up, he does not go back to sleep. People always ask me how a detective ends up getting fooled, how a man who spent 30 years catching liars could miss the one sitting at his own dinner table. The answer is simple. I trusted her. And trust is the one thing no amount of training prepares you to doubt. But to understand how I got here, you need to understand where I came from. Because the man Vanessa tried to destroy was not built overnight. He was built over 78 years. One hard lesson at a time, starting on the corner of 9th and Christian Street in South Philadelphia. That is where my father, Giuseppe Moretti, everyone called him Joe, ran a sandwich shop called Moretti's Italian Deli, 12 feet wide, 40 feet deep, a glass counter filled with capicola, provolone, and roasted peppers. The floors were black and white tile, cracked in 3 places. The ceiling had a water stain shaped like the state of New Jersey. My father stood behind that counter 6 days a week, 14 hours a day, for 37 years. He came to America from a village outside Naples in 1949 with $8 in his pocket and a recipe for bread that his grandmother taught him. He could not read English. He could barely speak it, but he could make a sandwich that would bring tears to your eyes. My mother Anna worked as a seamstress from our kitchen table. She altered dresses, hemmed pants, repaired coats for the women in the neighborhood. She charged $2 for a hem and $5 for a zipper replacement. She kept every penny she earned in a coffee can on top of the refrigerator. She called it the emergency fund. In 25 years, she never spent $1 from that can. When she died, there was $6,800 in it. She left it to me with a note that said, "For when the world tries to knock you down." I grew up in that sandwich shop. Before school, I swept the floors. After school, I sliced bread and wrapped orders. Saturday mornings, I carried deliveries to the old Italian women on 7th Street who could not walk to the shop anymore. The neighborhood was tight. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody watched out for each other. If you did something wrong on Monday, your mother knew about it by Tuesday breakfast because Mrs. Calabrese 3 doors down had already called her. South Philly, in the 1950s and 60s, was not rich. Nobody had money. But everybody had pride. My father never missed a day of work. He never complained about the hours or the heat in that tiny kitchen or the customers who tried to haggle over the price of a hoagie. He believed that if you worked hard enough and kept your word, America would eventually keep its promise to you. I still believe that. Even after everything that happened, I graduated from South Philadelphia High School in 1966. 3 months later, I enlisted in the United States Army. I was 18 years old, 155 pounds, convinced I was invincible. My father drove me to the enlistment office on Broad Street. He did not say much. He never did. But when I got out of the car, he grabbed my arm and said, "Francesco, you come home. You hear me? You come home." Vietnam was nothing like I imagined. I shipped out in January of '67 and was assigned to the 25th Infantry Division, operating in the Cu Chi district northwest of Saigon. The heat was suffocating. The jungle was alive with things that wanted to kill you. And I do not just mean the enemy. Insects the size of your thumb. Snakes that could drop from a tree branch and end you before you knew they were there. Rain that fell so hard it sounded like machine gun fire on the roof of our hooches. I was a squad leader by the time I was 19. Not because I was brave, because the men who were brave kept dying. I survived by paying attention, by noticing things other people missed. The way the grass bent when someone had walked through it recently, the faint click of a tripwire mechanism under fallen leaves, the subtle shift in bird sounds that meant someone was moving through the tree line. Details, small things, the things that keep you alive when everything around you is designed to kill you. On March 14th, 1968, our patrol walked into an ambush outside a village called Trang Bang. Automatic weapons fire from 3 positions. 2 men went down in the first 10 seconds. I took shrapnel in my left shoulder and my right thigh. I dragged Private First Class Danny Kowalski, a kid from Pittsburgh who was 19 years old and screaming for his mother, 40 yards through a rice paddy while rounds kicked up mud all around us. I got him to cover. He lived. I spent 3 weeks in a field hospital in Saigon and went back to my unit with a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star and a piece of metal still lodged near my collarbone that sets off airport detectors to this day. I came home in 1969. My father was waiting at the airport. He looked 10 years older than when I left. He grabbed me and held on so tight, I could feel his whole body shaking. He smelled like bread and provolone. The best smell in the world. He never asked me about the war. Not once. But sometimes late at night when I would wake up shouting, I would hear his footsteps outside my bedroom door. Pacing. Standing guard. The only way he knew how. I joined the Philadelphia Police Department in 1971. The academy was easy after Vietnam. Running, push-ups, obstacle courses, classroom lectures on criminal law. None of it compared to humping through jungle with 60 pounds on your back waiting for the world to explode. I graduated 3rd in my class and was assigned to patrol in South Philly, my own neighborhood. For 3 years, I walked the same streets I grew up on, now wearing a badge. But patrol was not where I belonged. I transferred to the detective division in 1974 and found my calling. Financial crimes, white-collar theft, embezzlement, fraud, the crimes that do not leave blood on the floor but destroy lives just the same. I was good at it. Better than good. The same instincts that kept me alive in Vietnam. The ability to notice what others missed, to read patterns in chaos, to follow a trail that most people could not even see. Those instincts made me one of the best financial crime detectives in the department. Over the next 30 years, I worked 214 cases. Ponzi schemes that robbed retirement funds, embezzlers who drained company accounts, insurance fraudsters who faked injuries and collected millions, con artists who preyed on the elderly, gaining trust, taking control, stealing everything. The faces changed, the methods evolved. But the pattern was always the same. Find someone vulnerable, gain their trust, take their money, smile while you do it. I retired in 2016 at the age of 68. 214 cases, 189 convictions. A department record that still stands. They gave me a plaque and a handshake and a pension that, combined with my military benefits and decades of careful investing, gave Marie and me a comfortable retirement. $2.9 million. Not Wall Street money, but for a sandwich maker's son from South Philly. It was a miracle. I thought I had seen every kind of thief there was. I thought I knew all the tricks, all the lies, all the ways people disguise greed as love. I thought 30 years of catching criminals had made me immune. I was wrong. Because the most dangerous thief I ever encountered was not sitting across an interrogation table. She was sitting at my dinner table, pouring my coffee, calling me Dad, and I never saw her coming. I met Marie Rivera on the second Sunday of June, 1977, at the Puerto Rican Day Parade on North 5th Street. I was 29 years old, 6 years into the force, already making a name for myself in financial crimes. I had gone to the parade with my partner Eddie Munoz because Eddie said his cousin's band was playing and the food was free. I did not care about the parade. I went for the pork. But then I heard her. A small stage had been set up on the corner of 5th and Lehigh. A woman was sitting on a folding chair under a string of colored lights, playing a nylon string guitar and singing a bolero in Spanish. She had dark curly hair that fell past her shoulders, brown skin that caught the afternoon sun, and a voice that made everything around her go quiet. The crowd, the traffic, the music from other stages, all of it faded. There was just her and that guitar and a song about a woman waiting for someone who might never come home. I stood there for 3 songs. I did not move. I did not blink. Eddie nudged me and said something about the pork stand, but I could not hear him. When she finished, she looked up and caught me staring. She smiled. Not a flirtatious smile, a curious one. Like she was trying to figure out why this Italian kid in a leather jacket was standing in the middle of a Puerto Rican festival looking like he had just been hit by a bus. Her name was Marie Elena Rivera. She was 25, born in Humboldt Park, Chicago, raised in North Philadelphia, after her family moved east when she was 12. Her father was a mechanic. Her mother cleaned offices at Temple University. Marie had a degree in music education from Temple and was teaching elementary school music in Kensington, one of the roughest neighborhoods in the city. She taught kids who came to school hungry, kids whose parents were in prison, kids who had never touched a musical instrument. She bought recorders and tambourines with her own money. She stayed after school to give free guitar lessons. She believed that music could save a life the way some people believe in medicine. I asked her to dinner that night. She said no. I asked again the next week. She said no again. I asked a third time. She laughed and said, "You are either very brave or very stupid." I told her I was both. She finally agreed to coffee. 2 hours turned into 4. 4 turned into walking along the Delaware River until midnight, talking about everything. Her music, my cases, her students, my nightmares from Vietnam. She was the first person I ever told about waking up screaming. She did not flinch. She just took my hand and held it. We married in 1979 at St. Ambrose Church on the corner of Old York Road in North Philly. Her side of the church was all music and color. My side was all Italian men in dark suits who cried during the vows and pretended they did not. My father made 300 sandwiches for the reception. Marie's mother made arroz con gandules and pernil. It was the best food I have ever eaten in my life. We danced until 2 in the morning to a band that played salsa and Sinatra in equal measure. We bought the house in Germantown in 1984, a 3-bedroom row home on Wayne Avenue. The neighborhood was mixed, black and white, and Puerto Rican, and everything in between. Marie loved it. She said it reminded her of music, all these different notes making something beautiful together. We planted tomatoes in the backyard, Because my father said, "No Italian home is complete without tomatoes." Marie added a small herb garden. Basil, cilantro, oregano. The backyard smelled like both our families combined. Our son Anthony was born in 1985. We called him Tony. He had Marie's dark eyes and my stubborn chin. He was a quiet kid, gentle, always drawing, always building things with his hands. He grew up listening to Marie play guitar in the kitchen and listening to me talk about cases at the dinner table. I thought I was raising a good man. I thought I was teaching him right from wrong. How to stand up for what matters. How to recognize a lie. I thought I did everything right. Marie taught music in the Philadelphia public school system for 28 years. She never made more than $54,000 a year. She never complained. She said her salary was not measured in dollars but in the number of kids who picked up an instrument and found something worth living for. After she retired, she volunteered at a community music program in Germantown, teaching piano and guitar to neighborhood kids for free. One of those kids, a girl named Sophia, was her favorite. Sophia was Tony's daughter, our granddaughter. 12 years old, big brown eyes, curly hair like Marie's, a laugh that could fill a house. Marie adored her. She said Sophia had the gift. She said that girl was going to do something extraordinary with music someday. Together, Marie and I saved carefully. My detective's salary, her teaching income, my military pension. Careful investments over decades. By the time I retired in 2016, we had $2.9 million. We were not rich by any stretch. But for a sandwich maker's son and a music teacher's daughter, it was everything. It was proof that the promise of this country still meant something, at least for people willing to work for it. Then in the spring of 2022, Marie started coughing, a dry cough that would not quit. She blamed allergies. She blamed the dust from the basement. She blamed everything except what it actually was. By June, the diagnosis came. Stage 3, lung cancer. She had never smoked a day in her life. The next 10 months were the worst of my existence. Worse than Vietnam. Worse than any crime scene I ever walked through. Watching Marie shrink. Watching the music leave her hands. Watching her voice fade to a whisper. She spent her last weeks at home, in our bedroom, surrounded by get-well cards from students she had taught decades ago. Kids who were now adults, doctors and teachers and mechanics, writing to tell her she had changed their lives. She died on a Tuesday morning in April of 2023. I was holding her hand. She squeezed once. Then she was gone. 2 weeks before Marie died, when she could barely lift her head from the pillow, Vanessa came to the house. She sat at the kitchen table across from me while I stared at nothing. She held my hand the way Marie used to hold it. She looked me in the eyes with tears streaming down her face and said words I will never forget. "Dad, let me take care of everything. The bills, the accounts, the paperwork. You should not have to worry about any of this right now. Just be with Mom. I will handle it all." I signed the durable power of attorney that same week. Victor Ruiz drew up the papers. Vanessa had full access to every account, every investment, every dollar. Marie and I had spent a lifetime building. I signed because I was drowning in grief. I signed because she was family. I signed because she called me Dad and cried at my kitchen table. And I believed every single tear. Marie's will was simple. The house to me. Personal belongings divided between Tony and Rosa, Tony's younger sister who lived in Trenton with Sophia after her divorce. And a special provision. $200,000 from Marie's life insurance policy to be placed in the Sophia Moretti Education Fund, a trust for our granddaughter's musical education. Marie made me promise. She held my hand the last time she had the strength to speak and whispered, "Take care of Sophia's music. Frank, promise me." I promised. I thought Vanessa would help me keep that promise. I did not know she had already broken it. The Monday after I found that receipt, I woke up at 5:30 the way I always do. Old habit from decades of early shifts. But instead of making coffee and sitting at the kitchen table staring at the empty chair where Marie used to grade papers, I went upstairs to my office and unlocked the filing cabinet for the first time in 8 years. The lock was stiff. I had to work the key back and forth 3 times before it finally turned. Inside were the remnants of my career. Stacks of case folders, old notebooks filled with my handwriting, a magnifying glass I used for examining documents, a box of latex gloves I never returned to the department. The smell hit me the moment the drawer opened. Paper and ink, and something faintly metallic, like old brass. It smelled like work. It smelled like purpose. I pulled out a blank case folder from the bottom of the drawer and labeled it with a black marker. Moretti, Frank, victim. I set it on my desk next to the detective's notebook I had opened on Friday night. Then I sat down and did something I had not done in 8 years. I built a case. Every investigation starts with what you know. I knew Vanessa had been in my kitchen on Wednesday. I knew a receipt for $14,000 in jewelry had appeared in my trash can. I knew Vanessa's legitimate income as a real estate attorney, even a successful one, would not easily support $14,000 impulse purchases at jewelry stores 90 minutes away. I knew she drove a white Range Rover that retailed for over $80,000. I knew she and Tony lived in a Tudor-style home in Bryn Mawr that had to cost at least $1.5 million. I knew she wore jewelry that glittered a little too brightly for a woman whose husband ran a mid-size architectural design firm. But knowing is not the same as proving. Suspicion is not evidence. I needed facts, documents, patterns. I started with the trash. Every Tuesday and Friday, Vanessa came by with groceries. Every Tuesday and Friday, she used my kitchen trash can. So, every Tuesday and Friday night, after she left, I went through it. I wore the latex gloves from my filing cabinet. Not because I was worried about fingerprints, but because old habits do not die. You wear gloves at a crime scene. You wear gloves when handling evidence. And my kitchen had become a crime scene. Over the next 2 weeks, the evidence accumulated. A gas station receipt from the New Jersey Turnpike, southbound, time-stamped at 9:47 on a Wednesday morning. Atlantic City is south of Philadelphia on the Turnpike. A crumpled business card from a company called Bayshore Holdings with a phone number in the 609 area code, South Jersey. A Nordstrom receipt for $2,100. A parking garage ticket from the Borgata Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, stamped for 4 hours on a Thursday afternoon. Each item went into the case folder. Each item got photographed with my phone. Each item got logged in my notebook with the date, time discovered, and a brief description. The same way I logged evidence for 30 years. Methodical, precise, patient. But the trash only told me where Vanessa was spending money. It did not tell me where the money was coming from. For that, I needed to look at what was coming into my house, not just what was being thrown away. I started checking the mail before Vanessa could get to it. She had a key to my mailbox. She said it was easier for her to pick up my mail when she came by with groceries, sort out the junk, bring me anything important. At the time, I thought it was thoughtful. Now I understood it was strategic. She was intercepting my financial statements. She was controlling what I saw and what I did not. I went to the post office on Chelton Avenue and asked them to hold my mail for pickup only. I showed my identification. They agreed. The next day, I picked up a stack of envelopes that Vanessa would have normally collected. Most were junk, but 3 were not. A quarterly statement from Vanguard, my primary investment account, a letter from Fidelity regarding my retirement fund, and a notice from First National Bank about activity on a joint checking account. I had not opened a financial statement in 2 years. Vanessa told me she reviewed them every quarter, and everything was fine. She would sit at my kitchen table with a printed summary, point to numbers, explain that the market was performing well and my accounts were healthy. She always had charts. She always had graphs. She always had that warm, reassuring voice that made me feel like everything was taken care of. I opened the Vanguard statement first. My hands were steady. A detective's hands are always steady when he is working a case. The emotions come later, after the evidence is collected, after the report is written. During the work, you are a machine. The numbers on that statement did not match anything Vanessa had shown me. Not even close. Her quarterly summaries showed steady growth, consistent returns, a healthy portfolio, hovering around $2.8 million. The actual Vanguard statement showed a balance of $412,000. It had been over $1.6 million the last time I looked, which was before Marie got sick. I opened the Fidelity statement. Same story. Vanessa's reports showed $700,000. The real balance was $108,000. Massive withdrawals, structured amounts, $20,000 here, $35,000 there, $50,000 on a single day in March. All of it authorized by Catherine V. Clark Moretti. Under durable power of attorney, I opened the bank notice. The joint checking account, the one Vanessa had set up under the power of attorney for managing household expenses, showed deposits and withdrawals I had never seen, large sums moving in and out. Transfers to entities I did not recognize. Clark Capital Partners. Bayshore Holdings. Names I had never heard of, except one. Bayshore Holdings. The same name on the crumpled business card from my trash can. I sat at my desk for a long time. The case folder was filling up. The notebook was filling up. The corkboard behind me now had receipts, photographs, and sticky notes connected by red thread, the same way I used to map criminal networks in the old days. In the center of the board was a photograph of Vanessa that I had printed from my phone. Blonde hair, blue eyes, perfect smile. The face of the woman who called me Dad. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the board. The pattern was unmistakable. I had seen it 100 times in my career. Structured withdrawals below fraud detection thresholds. Money moved through intermediary accounts. Shell company names designed to sound legitimate. A victim kept in the dark with fabricated reports. A perpetrator with legal access to the accounts through a signed document. This was not careless overspending. This was not a daughter-in-law borrowing a little money and meaning to pay it back. This was systematic liquidation. Professional. Calculated. The kind of operation I used to build federal cases around. And the person running it was sleeping in a house in Bryn Mawr that my money probably paid for. Driving a car my money leased. Wearing jewelry my money bought. While I sat in Germantown eating the groceries she delivered twice a week like a consolation prize. I closed the case folder and placed it in the filing cabinet. I locked the drawer. Then I sat in the quiet of my office and thought about what to do next. I had enough suspicion to fill a courtroom. But suspicion does not win cases. Evidence does. And the kind of evidence I needed, bank records, transaction histories, corporate filings, forensic financial analysis, that was beyond what one retired detective could do alone. I needed a lawyer I trusted with my life. I needed someone who could follow the money through whatever maze Vanessa had built. I needed my oldest friend. I picked up my phone and dialed Victor Ruiz. Victor Ruiz kept his office on the 4th floor of a limestone building on South Broad Street, 3 blocks from City Hall. The building was old, built in the 1920s, with brass elevator doors and marble floors that echo when you walk. Half the offices were empty now, but Victor stayed because he said the rent was cheap, and the ghosts of the lawyers before him kept him honest. I had known Victor for 25 years. We met at a Veterans Day ceremony at the Philadelphia VA Hospital in 1999. He had served in the Army too. Gulf War. Military intelligence. After his service, he went to law school at Howard University, then spent 15 years as a federal prosecutor in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. He put away insider traders, corrupt politicians, and a Ponzi scheme operator who bilked retirees out of $40 million. He was 68 years old, Dominican by blood, Bronx by birth, Philadelphia by choice. Built like a middleweight boxer with silver hair and reading glasses he only wore when no one was watching. I arrived at his office at 9 on a Wednesday morning carrying the case folder, my detective's notebook, and the weight of everything I had discovered. Victor buzzed me up. His office was exactly how I remembered it. Bookshelves on every wall, a mahogany desk buried under documents, a framed photograph of Sonia Sotomayor behind his chair. He looked at me, then at the case folder. He did not ask why I was there. He could read a face the way I read a crime scene. "Sit down, Frank. Tell me everything." So I did. The receipt, the jewelry store, the Nordstrom purchases, the business card from Bayshore Holdings, the intercepted mail, the real Vanguard and Fidelity statements showing balances that did not match anything Vanessa had reported, the fabricated quarterly summaries with their cheerful graphs and reassuring numbers, the pattern of structured withdrawals designed to fly under fraud detection thresholds. Victor listened without interrupting. When I finished, he picked up his phone and dialed a number from memory. He spoke to someone at his bank's trust department, gave authorization codes, and asked for current balances on every account linked to my name. The call lasted 12 minutes. He wrote numbers on a yellow legal pad. When he hung up, he stared at the pad for several seconds. Total assets across all accounts as of this morning: $310,412. $310,000. Out of $2.9 million. 89% of everything Marie and I built over 45 years. Gone. Every vacation we skipped, every time Marie said the old car runs fine, every dollar we saved for retirement and for Sophia's future. All of it reduced to a number on a yellow legal pad. Victor continued, his voice controlled. "The quarterly reports she sent you are fabricated. My IT contact examined the PDF metadata. They were created on a home computer using design software, not generated by any financial institution. She built every number, every graph from scratch. She is a real estate attorney," I said. "She handles escrow accounts, mortgage financing. She knows the system, which makes her methodical, not impulsive. That is more dangerous." Victor leaned back. "I want to bring someone in." 20 minutes later, the door opened. A young woman walked in. Small, maybe 5'2", black hair in a tight bun, sharp, dark eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, gray suit, leather messenger bag that looked heavier than she was. "Frank, this is Carmen Reyes, certified forensic accountant. 7 years with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division before going private. If money is hidden anywhere in the world, Carmen finds it." Carmen shook my hand with a firm grip. "Mr. Moretti, I am sorry about what has been done to you, but we are going to find every dollar. We are going to trace every transaction, and we are going to build a case no defense attorney can take apart." Victor put his hand on my shoulder. "Frank, this is the critical part. You cannot let Vanessa know that you know. If she suspects anything, she moves the remaining money somewhere we cannot trace. She destroys records. Carmen needs time to follow the trail. I need time to build the legal framework. You need to go home and be the same Frank Moretti she thinks you are. The grieving widower. The confused old man who trusts his daughter-in-law. How long? 6 weeks minimum. Maybe 8. I thought about Vietnam. Lying perfectly still in a rice paddy for 4 hours while enemy soldiers walked within 10 feet of my position, controlling my breathing, my heartbeat, my fear, because moving meant dying. "I have been pretending to be okay since Marie died," I said. "What is another 8 weeks?" Victor nodded. "The mission begins now. Go home. Act normal. Smile when she brings groceries. Thank her for the paperwork. Be the man she thinks you are, and trust us." I stood, shook their hands, and walked out into the October sunshine on Broad Street. The city moved around me. Taxis, buses, people rushing to work. None of them knew that a 78-year-old man had just declared war on his own family. I drove home to Germantown, gripping the steering wheel to keep my hands steady. $2.9 million. Stolen by family. While I grieved, But the detective was awake. The mission was active. And Frank Moretti does not lose. 10 days later, I sat in Victor's office again. Same leather chair, same October light through the tall windows. But this time, Carmen Reyes was standing at the desk with her laptop open and a look on her face that told me whatever she had found was worse than what we already knew. She turned the screen toward me. A flowchart filled the display. Boxes and arrows. My name at the top in red. Below it, a web of connections that spread downward, like the roots of a poison tree. Mr. Moretti, what I am about to show you is the result of 10 days of forensic analysis. I have traced every withdrawal, every transfer, every movement of your money over the past 24 months. She paused. It is not good. I nodded. I was a detective. I did not need the bad news. Softened. Your money moved through 3 layers of corporate entities before reaching its final destination. Layer 1. She pointed to the first box below my name. Clark Capital Partners, LLC. Registered in Delaware, which requires minimal disclosure. Catherine Vanessa Clark Moretti is listed as sole managing member. This entity receives structured transfers from the joint checking account she set up under your power of attorney. Layer 2. Her finger moved down. Bayshore Holdings, LLC. Also registered in Delaware. Clark Capital Partners transfers funds to Bayshore. On paper, Bayshore appears to be a real estate investment firm. It has a website, a mailing address in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, even a phone number. But when I called that number, it went to a voicemail box that has never been set up. The mailing address is a UPS store. Bayshore Holdings is a shell. It exists only to move money. Layer 3. She pointed to the bottom of the chart. Atlantic Crown Development Corporation. Registered in the Bahamas. This is the final destination. Atlantic Crown is developing a luxury condominium complex on the Atlantic City Boardwalk. 200 units. Ocean views. Rooftop pool. The kind of project that looks spectacular in a brochure. She clicked to a new screen. Photographs of a construction site. Half-finished concrete towers behind chain-link fencing. Idle cranes. Empty lots filled with weeds and standing water. This is what the project actually looks like. Construction began 2 years ago and stalled 18 months in. The project is $5.1 million over budget. 3 general contractors have filed lawsuits for non-payment. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection issued a stop work order 4 months ago after soil testing revealed heavy metal contamination on the site. Lead, mercury, and arsenic in concentrations that exceed federal safety limits. She let that settle. The land is poisoned, Mr. Moretti. The condominiums cannot be completed until the soil is remediated, which will cost an estimated $3 million that the developers do not have. Investors are demanding their money back. The project is effectively dead. How much of my money went into this? I asked. Carmen clicked to another screen. A spreadsheet with columns of dates and dollar amounts. Over 24 months, Pinnacle. I am sorry. Clark Capital Partners transferred approximately $2.4 million through Bayshore Holdings into Atlantic Crown Development. Your $2.4 million. Invested in a project that is now worth less than the contaminated dirt it sits on. I stared at the construction photographs. Concrete and rust and poisoned soil. That was what $2.4 million and 45 years of saving looked like when someone else decided how to spend it. There is more, Carmen said. She clicked to a corporate filing document. Atlantic Crown Development lists its officers and directors. The CEO is a man named Gerald Whitfield, a real estate developer out of Newark with 2 prior fraud investigations. No surprise there. And the director of project development. Carmen zoomed in on the name. Anthony Francis Moretti. The room went quiet. Victor was watching me. Carmen was watching me. They were waiting for my reaction. They had seen this name before I walked in. They had prepared for this moment. My son, Tony, listed as a director of the company that my stolen money was funding. His name typed neatly on a corporate document filed with the Bahamian government. My son, who hugged me every Friday night and asked about my health and poured my sparkling water because he remembered I stopped drinking after Marie died. Does he know? My voice came out flat, controlled. The detective voice. Victor answered carefully. We do not know the extent of his involvement. His name is on the documents, but that could mean he is an active participant, or it could mean Vanessa put his name there to create a layer of separation between herself and the project. We need more time to determine what he knew and when he knew it, Carmen continued. What I can tell you with certainty is this. Vanessa is desperate. The Atlantic City project is collapsing. Her investment, your investment, is essentially gone. She has significant personal debt. The house in Bryn Mawr carries a $1.6 million mortgage. The cars are leased. Her credit cards are near their limits. On paper, she and Tony have a negative net worth, which means she needs more money, I said. She needs the only asset you have left that she has not touched. Victor's voice was steady. Your house. $650,000 in current market value. It is the last piece. If she can gain control of that property, she can refinance it, pull out equity, maybe sell it outright. It is the only thing standing between her and complete financial collapse. I looked at the flowchart on Carmen's screen. My name in red at the top. Below it, 3 layers of deception, each designed to obscure the theft, to make the money disappear into a maze of shell companies and failed investments. At the bottom, a photograph of a half-built ruin on poisoned ground. This was not a crime of opportunity. This was architecture. Vanessa had designed this the way an engineer designs a bridge, load-bearing structures, redundant supports, layers of protection, except this bridge was built to carry my money away from me and into her pockets. She is going to come for the house, I said. Yes, Victor confirmed. And when she does, we need to be ready. But more than that, we need her to come for it on our terms. We need to control when and how she makes her move. You want to set a trap. Victor allowed himself a thin smile. I want to set a trap. And I want you to be the bait. I thought about my house, the house Marie and I bought in '84, the backyard where we grew tomatoes, the kitchen where she played guitar, the bedroom where she died holding my hand. Vanessa wanted to take it. She thought it was just equity. Just a number. She had no idea what that house meant. She had no idea what I was willing to do to protect it. Tell me what you need me to do, I said. The drive from Germantown to Bryn Mawr takes 25 minutes on a Friday evening. 25 minutes to cross from one world into another. My neighborhood is row homes and corner stores and old men on porches arguing about the Eagles. Bryn Mawr is stone mansions behind iron gates, 100-year-old oaks lining streets named after Welsh estates, and silence so thick you can hear your own heartbeat. I made this drive every Friday for 2 years. Every Friday, I drove straight into the life my stolen money built. Tony and Vanessa's house sat at the end of a private lane. Tudor revival, dark timber and cream stucco, 5 bedrooms, a stone patio overlooking a pool nobody used. In the driveway sat Tony's BMW and Vanessa's white Audi Q8. $92,000 of German engineering on asphalt paid for by my retirement fund. I parked behind the Audi and checked my face in the rearview mirror. Tired. Grateful. Slightly confused. The face Vanessa expected to see. Tony opened the door before I reached it. 6 feet tall, dark hair, Marie's eyes. Cable knit sweater and khakis. He looked like a catalog model for a life I could not afford. Except I had been paying for it. Dad, come in. You look good. I had not slept more than 4 hours a night since Victor showed me the numbers. But I smiled and let him pull me into a hug. His arms were strong. His embrace felt real. That was the worst part, because somewhere inside this man was the boy who fell asleep on my chest watching Phillies games. The kid who drew pictures of bridges and taped them to the refrigerator. That boy was still in there. I had to believe that. Vanessa appeared from the kitchen. Cream-colored silk, tailored pants, diamond earrings catching the chandelier light, blonde hair pulled back. Her smile was warm, practiced, flawless. "Dad, so glad you made it." She kissed my cheek. Her perfume was expensive, floral and French. "Dinner is almost ready. Chicken marsala, your favorite." "You spoil me, Kate." I paused. "Vanessa. Sorry, honey. My mind wanders sometimes." I called her the wrong name on purpose. The confused old man who cannot remember his daughter-in-law's name. Vanessa's eyes flickered. I could almost see her filing it away. Evidence of decline. Evidence she could use later. The dining room was immaculate. Walnut table, cloth napkins, crystal glasses, fresh flowers, candles, everything designed to project warmth. Tony poured me sparkling water with lime. He remembered I stopped drinking after Marie. That small kindness nearly cracked my mask. Conversation floated through safe territory. Tony's renovation project. Vanessa's property deal downtown. My health. My garden. The Phillies. I answered on autopilot while my detective brain scanned the room. New painting above the fireplace. Oil on canvas. Abstract. 4,000 minimum. New watch on Vanessa's wrist. Cartier. Gold band. 12,000. New light fixtures in the hallway. Custom-blown glass. 5,000. Every beautiful object was evidence. Every luxury was a line item on Carmen's spreadsheet. Halfway through dessert, Vanessa set down her fork and folded her hands. Her posture shifted. Shoulders back. Chin raised. The same posture prosecutors use before closing arguments. She was about to perform. "Dad, I have been reviewing your portfolio reports. The market has been volatile. Tech stocks down, interest rates climbing. Our financial advisor thinks it might be time to restructure. Move a larger portion into government bonds, treasury notes, things that are stable." I knew what she was doing. The liquid assets were running out. She needed to consolidate whatever remained into instruments she could control more easily. She was rearranging the shelves before I noticed the pantry was empty. I furrowed my brow. "Bonds? Is that like a savings account?" "Sort of, Dad. Safer way to protect your money. Less risk. I can handle the paperwork. You would not have to worry about anything. You would not have to worry about anything." The same words she used when Marie was dying. The same promise. The same lie. "That sounds smart. You know best, honey." Vanessa leaned forward. Blue eyes locked on mine. "You trust me, don't you, Dad?" Not a question. A test. She needed confirmation. She needed me to say the words so she could hold them like a key. I patted her hand. Her skin was cool. "Of course I trust you. You have been a blessing to this family." Relief washed over her face. Shoulders softened. Smile widened. "That means so much. We love you. We just want to make sure you are protected." Protected. The word tasted like ash. Protected from what? From discovering that my family stole $3 million? From learning my son's name sat on corporate documents for a failing development on poisoned ground? Tony walked me to the door at 9:30. He hugged me and held on a beat longer than usual. "Love you, Dad. Drive safe." "Love you too, son." I made it 4 blocks past the stone mansions and the iron gates before I pulled into a gas station. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My body shook. Not from cold. From 3 hours of smiling at the woman who was destroying me. I sat for 10 minutes until my hands stopped trembling. Then I called Victor. She wants to restructure my investments. Bonds. She can control. The well is running dry. She is consolidating. I do not know how many more of these dinners I can survive. You can survive as many as it takes. Because you are Frank Moretti. I drove home to Germantown. To my house. To the quiet rooms where Marie used to play guitar. The performance was over. For tonight. But tomorrow, the real work would begin. Victor had a plan. And that plan started with an old friend. A cup of espresso. And a secret I needed the whole neighborhood to hear. Every cop knows that the fastest way to spread information is to tell someone a secret and ask them not to repeat it. The more you emphasize the confidentiality, the faster it travels. It is human nature. A secret is a gift people cannot wait to give away. Sal Benedetto was the most generous gift giver in South Philadelphia. I met Sal at Cafe Lucia on 9th Street. Right in the heart of the Italian market on a Tuesday morning. The cafe had been there since 1961. Espresso machine older than most of its customers. Black and white tile floor. Photographs of Frank Sinatra, Rocky Balboa, and Pope John Paul II on the wall behind the counter. 3 small tables by the window where retired men gathered every morning to drink espresso and argue about things that did not matter so they could avoid thinking about things that did. Sal was already there when I arrived. 73 years old, thick white hair combed straight back, a face that looked like it had been carved out of a brick wall. He wore a short-sleeve button-up shirt, even though it was November, because Sal said sleeves were for people who had something to hide. He had been my partner on patrol for 2 years in the early 70s before he transferred to narcotics. After retirement, he became the unofficial information bureau of the neighborhood. If something happened south of Washington Avenue, Sal knew about it before the police did. Frankie. He stood and grabbed my hand with both of his. Good to see you, brother. You look tired. You eating? I ate fine, Sal. You do not eat fine. You look like a scarecrow, somebody dressed in a jacket. Sit. I am ordering you a cornetto. We sat by the window. The espresso was strong and bitter, the way my father used to make it. The cornetto was fresh, flaky, filled with apricot jam. Outside, the market was coming alive. Vendors setting up produce stands, butchers hanging sausages in shop windows, the smell of fresh bread mixing with roasted peppers and diesel exhaust from delivery trucks. This was my world, the world my father built his life in. Real people. Real work. Not shell companies and poisoned dirt in Atlantic City. We talked for 30 minutes about nothing important. His grandchildren, my garden, the Eagles draft picks, a mutual friend who just had hip surgery. Comfortable conversation. The kind you can only have with someone who has known you for 50 years. Then I leaned back, stirred my espresso, and set the hook. Sal, I have been thinking about something. I have not told anyone yet, and I would appreciate you keeping this between us. Sal leaned forward immediately. His eyes sharpened. There was nothing Sal loved more than being the first to know something. Of course, Frankie. Whatever you say stays right here. I am thinking about selling the house. Sal's jaw dropped. Literally. His mouth hung open for a full second before he caught himself. Selling? The Germantown house? You and Marie's house? You have been there since what, 84? 40 years. But since Marie passed, it is too much. The yard work, the repairs, the stairs. My knees are not what they used to be. I have been looking at a place in Cape May, small apartment near the beach. No maintenance, no yard, no stairs. Just the ocean and some peace. Cape May. Sal said it like I had announced I was moving to the moon. Or, I continued, keeping my voice casual, I have been thinking about donating the house to the Veterans of Foreign Wars Foundation. You know they run programs for homeless veterans. A house like mine, they could convert it into transitional housing. It would mean something. Marie would have liked that. This was the double bait. Victor designed it. If I just said I was selling, Vanessa would panic about losing the equity. But if I said I might donate it to charity, she would lose her mind entirely. A sale at least puts money on the table, money she might find a way to access. A donation means the house disappears from her reach completely. Zero recovery. Game over. Sal shook his head slowly. That is a big decision, Frank. Have you talked to Tony about this? Not yet. I am still thinking it through. Just between us, okay? I do not want the family getting involved until I have made up my mind. Absolutely. Sal held up both hands. Not a word. You know me. I knew him perfectly. By tomorrow morning, every barbershop, bakery, and church hall in South Philadelphia would know that Frank Moretti was thinking about selling his house or giving it away. By tomorrow evening, the information would reach the extended network. Cousins, in-laws, old colleagues, neighbors who knew Tony. And by the day after that, Vanessa would hear. We finished our coffee. Sal hugged me goodbye. He held on tight. Whatever you decide, Frankie, just make sure it is what you want. That house means something. Your father would have been proud of what you built there. His words hit harder than he knew. I drove home and waited. 2 days. That was how long it took. Tuesday morning espresso with Sal. Thursday afternoon, my phone rang. Vanessa, Dad. Her voice was tight. The honey was gone. I just heard something that concerns me. Someone told Tony that you are thinking about selling the house or donating it. Is that true? I made my voice uncertain. Wavering. Oh, I did not realize people were talking about that. It is just an idea. Sal and I were chatting, and I mentioned I have been feeling overwhelmed. The house is so much work. Dad, for a vein man. A vein for send. A vein man. A vein for four. Her pitch rose. Not concerned. Panicked. That is your biggest asset. That is your security. If you donate it, you get nothing. Nothing. Do you understand that? I just thought it might help some veterans who need a place to live. Marie always cared about helping people. This is not about helping people. The mask slipped for half a second. I heard the edge beneath the sweetness, the desperation beneath the concern. She caught herself. Her voice softened again, forcibly. I mean, of course, helping people is wonderful, but you need to think about yourself first. About your future. Promise me you will not sign anything. Promise me you will not call any real estate agents or any charity organizations without talking to Marcus and me first. She said Marcus. She meant to say Tony. I noted the slip, but did not react. Stress causes mistakes. Mistakes reveal truth. Okay, Vanessa. I will not do anything without talking to you. Good. I am coming by this weekend. We need to sit down and discuss this properly. She hung up without saying goodbye. I set down the phone and sat in the silence of my kitchen. The panic in her voice was unmistakable. Not the panic of a daughter-in-law worried about her father. The panic of a woman watching her last lifeline slip through her fingers. The bait was in the water. She had taken it. Now we just had to wait for her to swim deeper into the trap. Before Vanessa came for the house, I needed her to come for the paperwork. Victor explained it simply. Every time she touches a document, she leaves a fingerprint. Not a literal one, a legal one. Every form she files, every beneficiary she changes, every signature she collects builds the pattern. Let her keep building. Let her think she is gaining control. The more control she takes, the more evidence she creates. So on Monday morning, I called her. I timed it for 10:15. The middle of her workday. A moment when my call would be an interruption, a burden, something she would have to manage. Dad, is everything okay? The edge of annoyance smoothed over with false warmth. The tone people use when they are busy, but performing patience. I let out a heavy sigh. Vanessa. Honey. I am sorry to bother you. I have all these papers from the insurance company. They are asking about beneficiaries and estate planning, and I cannot make sense of the legal language. Marie always handled these things. A pause. I could hear her calculating. Annoyance weighed against opportunity. The opportunity to reinforce my dependence on her. To position herself as indispensable. Of course, Dad. I have a meeting until noon, but I can come by around 2. I will take a look at everything. You are such a blessing. That is what family is for. I spent the next 3 hours preparing the stage. I spread insurance documents across the kitchen table in deliberate disarray. Some stacked neatly, others fanned out, a few with sticky notes I had attached in shaky handwriting. Questions like, what does this mean? And who do I call? The image of a man who had tried to organize his affairs but drowned in the complexity. The confused widower, desperate for help. At exactly 2 o'clock, a white Range Rover pulled into my driveway. I watched from the kitchen window. Vanessa stepped out wearing dark jeans, a silk blouse, and designer sunglasses. She carried a large leather bag and walked toward my door with the stride of someone who owned every room she entered. I opened the door before she knocked. Vanessa, thank you so much for coming. Of course, Dad. She removed her sunglasses and stepped inside. Her eyes moved around the living room the way they always did. Not casually. Appraisingly. The way a real estate agent scans a property before listing it. I watched her gaze land on the fireplace mantel, the built-in bookshelves, the hardwood floors. She was calculating square footage, estimating value, mentally staging the house for sale. We sat at the kitchen table. She pulled the documents toward her and began sorting with practiced efficiency, flipping pages, scanning paragraphs, separating policies into stacks. She was good at this. Quick, professional. It was easy to see how she had fooled me for 2 years. She genuinely knew what she was doing. Okay, let us start with the life insurance, she said. This policy is straightforward. You are the holder, and the beneficiary is listed as the estate. Have you thought about updating this? Naming specific beneficiaries instead? I had not really thought about it. I made my voice slow, uncertain. What would you suggest? Well, Tony is your only living child. You could name him as primary beneficiary and Sophia as contingent. That way, if anything happens, the money goes directly to them without probate. Without probate. Where lawyers and judges would examine how my finances had been managed. Where questions might be asked about missing millions. She wanted everything to flow directly to Tony, which meant directly to her control. That makes sense, I said, nodding slowly. I will contact the insurance company tomorrow and start the paperwork. You will just need to sign when the forms arrive. She moved through the rest of the documents. Health insurance, homeowner's policy, car insurance. For each one, she provided explanations in a voice that was slightly too loud, slightly too slow. The voice people use when talking to children or the elderly. A voice that says, I am being patient with you, even though you should understand this yourself. I let her talk. I nodded at the right moments. I asked simple questions designed to make me seem overwhelmed. And I watched everything. The way she organized my papers into her own system. Not mine. The way she photographed certain pages with her phone. The way she made notes in an app. Tapping quickly, her fingers moving with an urgency that did not match her calm voice. She was not just helping me. She was auditing me, inventorying what remained, figuring out what else she could take. After an hour, she stood and gathered her things. I think we are all set, Dad. I will handle the beneficiary changes and make sure everything is updated. You do not need to worry about any of this. You are wonderful, Vanessa. She beamed. Then her expression shifted, casual but calculated. Oh, before I forget, did you think any more about what we discussed at dinner? The bond restructuring? I have been thinking about it. It sounds like a good idea. Great. I will set up a meeting with our advisor next week. She leaned down and kissed my cheek. Her lips were cold. Or maybe it was my skin. Take care of yourself, Dad. Call me if you need anything. I walked her to the door and watched the Range Rover back out of my driveway. White paint gleaming, chrome wheels spinning. A vehicle that cost more than some people earn in 2 years. paid for by a man who grew up sweeping floors in a sandwich shop. I closed the door and leaned against it. The performance had been exhausting. Every smile, every confused question, every grateful nod felt like swallowing glass. But it was working. She believed me completely. She thought I was the confused old man she could manage and manipulate and eventually discard. I walked to the kitchen table and looked at the documents she had organized into neat stacks. She had taken photographs of 6 pages. She had made notes about 4 policies. She had started the process of changing beneficiaries on my life insurance. Every action documented by the security camera Victor had installed in my kitchen light fixture last week. A small device, no bigger than a button, wide-angle lens, crystal clear video. She never looked up. She never noticed. I sat down and opened my detective's notebook. I wrote the date, the time of her arrival and departure, and a detailed summary of everything she said and did. Then I added one line at the bottom. Subject continues to expand control over victims' financial instruments. Behavior consistent with systematic asset appropriation. Recommend. Continued surveillance. The old language felt comfortable. Like putting on a uniform that still fits after all these years. The metal box sat on the mantel above the fireplace. Mahogany. Brass hinges. A small engraved plate on the lid that read Sergeant Frank A. Moretti, United States Marine Corps, 1967 to 1971. Marie had it custom made for my 60th birthday. She polished it every Sunday morning, right after Mass, right before she started the gravy. Inside were my Purple Heart, my Bronze Star, 3-unit citations, and a folded American flag, no bigger than a paperback novel. I had not opened that box in nearly 2 decades. The weight of it on the mantel was enough to remind me of who I was. But that Tuesday morning in November, I opened it. Not to remember, to prepare. Victor had called the night before. His voice was calm the way a surgeon is calm before cutting. He said Vanessa had retained Richard Calloway, one of the most aggressive civil attorneys on the main line. He said Calloway was drafting conservatorship paperwork. They were going to argue I was mentally unfit to manage my own affairs. That I needed a legal guardian. That the most qualified candidate was Vanessa Clark Moretti. I sat in my kitchen for 40 minutes after that call. The coffee went cold. Then I walked to the mantel, lifted the box, and carried it to the kitchen table. The metals gleamed under the overhead light. I removed each item and set them on a folded dish towel. The bottom panel was removable, a feature Marie had requested, so I could store documents beneath the metals. I had forgotten about it until that moment. I drove to an electronics store on Cheltenham Avenue the next morning. Paid cash. No loyalty card. I purchased a voice-activated digital recorder, the size of my thumb. 64 gigabyte memory, 72 hours of continuous recording. I also bought a flat lithium battery pack that could power it for 5 days. Back at the table, I taped the recorder to the underside of the felt panel with medical adhesive. Connected the battery. Tested the range by walking to the far wall and speaking in a normal tone. Played it back. Every word clear. I replaced the panel, arranged the metals on top, closed the lid, and set the box back on the mantel. If you did not know the recorder was there, you would never find it. Then I called Vanessa. I told her I was feeling tired. I told her the house felt empty and the cold was getting into my bones. I told her I wanted to talk about restructuring my investments in person because financial documents confused me on the phone. I told her I trusted her. She arrived Thursday at 2:15. White Range Rover. Cream wool coat. A folder tucked under her arm. I had positioned the metal box at the center of the mantel, directly across from the armchair where I knew she would sit. 4 feet from the microphone. The recorder was active. I offered tea. She accepted chamomile with honey. I moved slowly in the kitchen, letting her settle. When I returned, she was sitting exactly where I needed her. She opened the folder on the coffee table. 3 documents. The first was a revised power of attorney, granting her expanded authority over all accounts, including brokerage, retirement, and real estate. The second was an application to transfer my remaining funds into a bond portfolio managed by Whitecrest Capital Advisors, a firm I had never heard of. The third was a medical authorization form allowing her to make healthcare decisions on my behalf. She explained each one with the patience of a kindergarten teacher. Her voice was soft. Her eyes never blinked when she lied. I let her talk. I played confused. I played tired. I played old. Then I asked the question Victor, and I had rehearsed 14 times. Vanessa, where is the money that was in my joint account with Marie? The one at First Federal. Victor told me the balance is different from what you showed me. Her smile did not disappear. It froze, like a photograph where the shutter caught someone. Mid-expression. She set down her teacup. She folded her hands. She said the money had been moved into safer investments. Market volatility required aggressive repositioning. She said a portion had gone into the Atlantic City project, which was Tony's dream. The returns would be substantial once construction resumed. I asked how much. She said a portion. I asked again. She said approximately 1.8 million. I asked where the rest went. Operating costs, she said. Legal fees. Consulting. Standard business expenses. I asked if Tony knew the full amount. She paused for 3 seconds. I counted. 3 seconds of silence from a woman who always had an answer ready before you finished asking. He knows what he needs to know, she said. I nodded. I picked up my tea. I looked at the metal box on the mantel behind her and thought about the tiny machine capturing every syllable. She stayed another 20 minutes. She asked me to sign the documents. I told her I wanted Victor to review them first. Her jaw tightened. She said Victor was not qualified to advise on financial matters. I said he was my lawyer, and I trusted him. She said trust was not the issue. I said it was the only issue. She left at 3:41. I watched the Range Rover disappear, then walked to the mantel. Opened the box. Removed the panel. Disconnected the recorder. I pressed play at the kitchen table. Her voice filled the room. Every word. Every pause. Every lie. 47 minutes of recorded conversation, clear as Sunday church bells on Passyunk Avenue. I called Victor at 4:12. I got it, I said. How clear? He asked. She admitted to moving 1.8 million into Atlantic City. She admitted Tony does not know the full amount. She admitted to restructuring without my informed consent. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Frank, this is the foundation. This is what we build the whole case on. Do not let anyone hear this recording. Do not mention it to Tony. Bring it to my office tomorrow at 9. I said I would be there at 8:30. I hung up and sat alone. The recorder lay on the table next to the empty teacups. The metal box was open on the mantel, the Purple Heart catching the last November light. Marie built that box to honor what I survived. Now it had captured the voice of the woman who tried to steal everything we built together. And it had done it without making a sound. I closed the box, washed the cups, turned off the kitchen light, stood in the dark for a long time, listening to the silence of a house that was about to become very, very loud. I arrived at Victor's office on Broad Street at 8:27. 3 minutes early. Old habit. In the department, early meant on time. On time meant late. Late meant someone else got hurt. Victor was already at his desk. 2 coffees from the Dominican place on Spring Garden. Black. No sugar. The way we both drank it. Carmen Reyes sat in the leather chair by the window, a laptop open on her knees, and a stack of folders thick enough to stop a bullet. I set the recorder on the desk between the 2 coffees. Victor picked it up, turned it over in his fingers, then connected it to his laptop with a cable he had ready. He pressed play. Vanessa's voice filled the small office like smoke through a cracked window. Approximately 1.8 million. He knows what he needs to know. Standard business expenses. Victor played it twice. Carmen played it a third time with headphones, typing notes on her laptop with the speed of a court stenographer. When she finished, she removed the headphones and looked at me the way a doctor looks at you before delivering news that will change the rest of your life. "There is something else," she said. She opened a manila folder from the bottom of her stack. Inside were two documents. The first was a photocopy of Marie's original will, dated March 14th, 2005. I recognized it immediately. Marie and I had drafted it together with our first attorney, Old Patterson on Rittenhouse Square, 6 months after Tony graduated from Temple. The will was straightforward. Everything split evenly between me and Tony. If I passed first, Tony received the full estate. If Tony passed first, everything went to Sophia when she turned 21, held in trust by Victor. The second document was something I had never seen before. Carmen slid it across the desk. It was a revised last will and testament of Marie Rivera Moretti, dated January 9th, 2007. The revisions were significant. The house on Germantown Avenue was to be transferred to Anthony and Vanessa Moretti upon my death or incapacitation. My retirement accounts were to be consolidated and managed by a designated financial representative, with Vanessa Clark Moretti named as sole fiduciary. Sophia's trust was reduced from full inheritance to a fixed sum of $75,000. And at the bottom of the second page, above a notary stamp from a service I had never heard of, was Marie's signature. I stared at it for a long time. I knew Marie's handwriting the way I knew the sound of her voice. 41 years of grocery lists, birthday cards, love notes tucked into my lunch bag when I worked nights, letters she wrote to her mother in Puerto Rico every second Sunday. I knew the way she crossed her T with a slight upward curve. I knew the way her capital M leaned just barely to the left. I knew the way she dotted her. I not directly above the letter, but slightly forward, as if her hand was always in a hurry to reach the next word. The signature on that document was close, very close, but the T was straight, the M was upright, and the dot above the I sat perfectly centered like a printed font. "That is not Marie's signature," I said. Victor nodded. He had already known. He wanted me to confirm it. Carmen pulled another sheet from the folder, a forensic comparison she had commissioned from a certified document examiner named Daniel Okafor, a former FBI handwriting analyst who now consulted privately out of an office in Center City. Okafor had examined the original will, 7 samples of Marie's known handwriting, including 2 birthday cards and a signed insurance form, and the revised document. His conclusion was unambiguous. The signature on the revised will was a skilled but identifiable forgery. Stroke pressure was inconsistent with the known samples. Letter spacing was artificially uniform. The pen used was a fine-point rollerball, whereas Marie exclusively used medium-point ballpoints, a detail confirmed by samples spanning 15 years. Carmen said the notary stamp on the revised will belong to a service called Quick Seal Notary, registered to a single operator in Bala Sinwid. That operator had let the notary commission expire in 2009. The address listed was now a nail salon. There was no record of Marie Rivera Moretti ever visiting that location. The revised will was filed with the Surrogate's Office of Philadelphia County on February 3, 2008, she said. 11 months after the document was allegedly signed. The filing was submitted by Vanessa Clark, listing herself as family representative, 2008. Marie was still alive then. She was healthy. She was sharp. She was making Sunday gravy and arguing with me about whether to paint the kitchen yellow or cream. And she never mentioned a revised will because she never signed one. I felt something move through my chest that I had not felt since Vietnam. Not fear. Not sadness. A cold, mechanical fury that started in the center of my ribs and spread outward until my fingertips tingled. The kind of anger that does not shout. The kind that sits perfectly still and waits. Victor reached across the desk and placed his hand flat on the folder. "Frank," he said, "this is forgery. This is fraud. This is a felony under Pennsylvania law. Combined with the recording, combined with the shell companies, combined with the power of attorney abuse, we are no longer looking at a civil case. We are looking at criminal charges, elder abuse, financial exploitation, forgery of a legal instrument, wire fraud, across state lines. I asked him what happens next. He said Daniel Okafor would provide a sworn affidavit confirming the forgery. Carmen would attach it to the full forensic report, together with the recording, the shell company documentation, and the fabricated quarterly statements. They would have a case file exceeding 350 pages. He said Vanessa did not know any of this existed. She believed I was a confused old man who could not read his own bank statements. She believed the conservatorship would sail through unopposed. She believed she had already won. Carmen closed her laptop. She looked at me and said something I will carry for the rest of my life. Mr. Moretti, your wife's name was used to steal from you. We are going to make sure her name is the last thing Vanessa hears before the judge rules. I picked up my coffee. It had gone cold. I drank it anyway. In the department, you drank whatever was in front of you because you never knew when the next cup was coming. I looked at the forged signature one more time. That careful, steady, fraudulent reproduction of the hand of the woman who loved me for 41 years. The woman who could not defend herself because she was buried in Holy Cross Cemetery under a headstone I had chosen myself. I closed the folder. I looked at Victor. I looked at Carmen. Let us finish this, I said. This story is for entertainment purposes only. All names, characters, and events are fictional. Any resemblance to real persons or situations is purely coincidental. The envelope arrived on a Monday, 10:42 in the morning. I know the exact time because I was standing at the kitchen window watching a cardinal sit on the telephone wire across the street, and I had just looked at the clock above the stove to see how long the bird had been there. 7 minutes. Then the mail truck stopped. Then my life changed again. It was a thick white envelope. Legal size. Return address. Printed in a serif font. The law offices of Richard T. Calloway, Esquire, Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. My name was typed in the center, with a formality that made my own kitchen feel like a courtroom. Frank Anthony Moretti. No Mr. No Sir. Just a name on a document that someone wanted erased. I opened it at the table. Inside were 14 pages stapled in the upper left corner. The header read, "In the matter of the alleged incapacitated person, Frank Anthony Moretti, Court of Common Pleas, Philadelphia County. Orphans Court Division. Petition for emergency appointment of a guardian of the person and estate." I read every word, every paragraph, every footnote. 30 years of reading warrants and subpoenas and arrest affidavits had trained my eyes to find the knife hidden inside the language. And this document had knives everywhere. The petition alleged that I was suffering from progressive cognitive decline consistent with early to moderate stage dementia. It cited confusion with financial documents, inability to manage household affairs, and a pattern of erratic decision-making observed over the previous 18 months. It requested that the court appoint a guardian with full authority over my medical care, living arrangements, and financial assets. The proposed guardian was Vanessa Clark Moretti, daughter-in-law, described as my primary caregiver and closest family contact. Attached was a medical evaluation signed by a Dr. Robert Morrison, a geriatric psychiatrist with a practice in Bala Sinwid. I had never met Robert Morrison. I had never visited his office. I had never sat across from him while he asked me to count backward from 100 by sevens, or draw a clock face, or remember 3 words after 5 minutes. Yet his report stated that he had conducted a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation on October 19th and concluded that I demonstrated significant deficits in short-term memory, executive function, and financial reasoning capacity. October 19th. I checked my calendar. On October 19th, I had driven myself to the Italian market, bought 2 pounds of sausage from Esposito's, stopped at the hardware store for wood glue, come home, repaired a loose drawer in the bedroom dresser, cook dinner, and watch the Phillies lose to Arizona in the NLCS. I did all of that alone. I did not visit a psychiatrist in Bela Sinwid. I did not take any cognitive tests. The evaluation was a fabrication. The petition also included 2 witness declarations. The first was from a woman named Patricia Hoffman, identified as a neighbor, who stated that she had observed me wandering in my front yard on multiple occasions, appearing disoriented and confused. I do not have a neighbor named Patricia Hoffman. The house to my left belongs to the Mwins. The house to my right has been empty for 14 months. The second declaration was from a man named Gerald Whitfield, the same Gerald Whitfield whose name appeared on the corporate filings for Atlantic Crown Development. He stated that during a business dinner, he had observed me repeating stories and failing to recognize family members. I had never shared a meal with Gerald Whitfield. I set the petition down on the kitchen table. I placed my hands flat on either side of it. I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth, the way the combat medic taught us in Da Nang when the shelling started. And your hands would not stop shaking. Then I called Victor. He answered on the second ring. I read him the case number. He was quiet for 6 seconds. I heard his chair creak. Then he spoke in the voice I had only heard him use twice before, in the years I had known him. Once when his mother was diagnosed, once when a judge threatened to disbar him for contempt. Low, even, made of concrete. They filed it Friday, he said. Calloway walked it through the clerk's office personally. The hearing is set for 3 weeks from today. Judge Margaret Chen, courtroom, 612. They requested an expedited schedule, citing imminent risk to the alleged incapacitated person's welfare and assets. Imminent risk. I was the imminent risk. A 78-year-old man, sitting in his own kitchen, reading his own mail, was considered an imminent risk to himself. Victor told me not to panic. He said this was expected. He said Calloway was moving fast because Vanessa was desperate. The Atlantic City project was hemorrhaging money. The stop work order meant no revenue. Investors were threatening lawsuits. The only remaining asset Vanessa could access quickly was my house and whatever was left in my accounts. The conservatorship was not about protecting me. It was about protecting her. He laid out the counter-strategy in precise, numbered steps, the way I used to lay out a surveillance operation. First, we would file an objection within 5 business days. Second, we would demand an independent medical evaluation by a court-appointed physician, not Morrison. Victor had already identified a candidate. Dr. Helen Park, a board-certified geriatric neuropsychologist at Penn Medicine, with 30 years of experience and a reputation for thoroughness that made attorneys on both sides nervous. Third, we would subpoena Morrison's records, his appointment logs, his billing statements, his patient intake forms. If I was never in his office, there would be no record of my visit. And if there was a fabricated record, that was perjury. Fourth, and this was the part that made Victor pause before speaking, we would file a motion to present evidence of financial exploitation as grounds for dismissing the petition entirely. The recording, the shell companies, the forged will, 350 pages of documentation proving that the woman requesting guardianship was the same woman who had stolen $2.4 million from the man she claimed to be protecting. Frank, he said, they think this hearing is about whether you are competent. We are going to make it about whether Vanessa is criminal. I asked about Tony. Victor was quiet again. Tony is listed on the petition as a supporting party, he said. His signature is on page 11. I turned to page 11. There it was. Anthony Francis Moretti. My son's handwriting. The same handwriting I had watched develop from crayon scrawls on construction paper to neat print on his Temple University application. He had signed the document requesting that his father be declared incompetent. I closed the petition. I placed it inside the manila folder with the forged will and the forensic report. I carried the folder to the living room and set it on the mantel beside the metal box. 2 wars, I thought. The one in the jungle that gave me the Purple Heart, and the one in my own family that was about to give me something else entirely. I picked up the phone and called Victor back. "Schedule Dr. Park," I said. "File the objection. And Victor, make sure you bring the recording." Penn Medicine sits on the western edge of the University of Pennsylvania campus, in a part of Philadelphia where the old brick row homes give way to glass and steel, and the sidewalks fill with students carrying backpacks worth more than my first car. I parked in the garage on 34th Street at 8:51 on a Wednesday morning. My appointment was at 9:30, 40 minutes early. In the department, we called that recon time. I sat in the car with the engine off and the windows cracked. November air pushed through the gap, carrying the smell of roasted chestnuts from a cart on the corner. I watched a young woman in a white coat cross the street carrying a coffee in one hand and a stack of files in the other. She looked like she had not slept in 2 days. I recognized the walk. Same walk I had after a double homicide shift in 1984. Same walk Marie had after her 3rd round of chemotherapy. Exhaustion has a posture. You learn to read it. At 9:15, I took the elevator to the 6th floor. The neuropsychology department was at the end of a long corridor, with fluorescent lights and framed photographs of the Philadelphia skyline. The waiting room smelled like hand sanitizer and new carpet. I signed in at the front desk. The receptionist was a young man with round glasses who called me sir without being asked. I appreciated that. Dr. Helen Park came out at 9:28. She was shorter than I expected. Maybe 5'3". Korean American. Early 50s. Silver wire frame glasses. Hair pulled back in a clip. She wore a navy blazer over a cream blouse and carried a leather portfolio that looked like it had survived more courtrooms than most lawyers. She shook my hand with a grip that meant business. Her office was small, but organized with the precision of someone who understood that disorder was the enemy of accuracy. A mahogany desk, 2 chairs, a window facing west toward the Schuylkill River. On the wall behind her desk hung 3 diplomas. University of Michigan, Johns Hopkins, a board certification from the American Academy of Clinical Neuropsychology. No family photos, no decorations, just credentials and a clock. She began by explaining the process. The evaluation would take approximately 3 hours. It would include a clinical interview, standardized cognitive testing, memory assessment, executive function analysis, and a review of my medical history. She said her report would be submitted to the court as an independent evaluation. She said she worked for neither side. She worked for the truth. I told her that was the only side I had ever worked for. She did not smile. She opened her portfolio and began. The clinical interview lasted 45 minutes. She asked about my childhood in South Philadelphia, my military service, my career with the police department, how many years, what division, how many cases. She asked about Marie, how long we were married, when she was diagnosed, when she passed. She asked about Tony, about Sophia, about my daily routine. What I ate for breakfast that morning: 2 eggs over easy, rye toast, black coffee, half a grapefruit. She wrote everything down in a handwriting so small and precise it looked like typeset. Then the testing began. She started with the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. Draw a clock showing 10 past 11. I drew it. Connect the dots in alternating sequence. Number letter. Number letter. I connected them. Name as many words starting with F as you can in 60 seconds. I named 19. She made a note. The average for my age group was 12. She moved to the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. Pattern recognition. Block design. Matrix reasoning. She showed me sequences of shapes and asked me to identify what came next. She read me strings of numbers and asked me to repeat them backward. 7 digits. I gave her 8. She paused, wrote something down, moved on. The memory test came next. She read me a short story about a woman named Anna who lived in a small town and worked at a bakery and lost her wallet on a Tuesday afternoon. She asked me to repeat as much as I could. I gave her the name, the town, the bakery, the wallet, the day, and 2 details she had buried in the middle that most people missed. The color of the woman's coat, the number on the bus she took home. 30 minutes later, she read me the story again and asked me to recall it. I repeated it nearly word for word. She looked at me over her glasses. She did not say anything. She did not need to. The executive function tests were the ones that mattered most for the court. She gave me scenarios involving financial decisions. A hypothetical investment with projected returns and risks. A household budget with conflicting expenses. A medical situation requiring cost-benefit analysis between 2 treatment options. I answered each one methodically. I showed my reasoning. I identified variables, weighed outcomes, and explained my conclusions the same way I had written case summaries for 30 years. She gave me the trail-making test. Part A, connect numbers in order. Part B, alternate between numbers and letters. I completed both within the top 15 percentile for my age group. She timed me with a stopwatch and wrote the numbers down without expression. At 12:17, she closed her portfolio. She removed her glasses and set them on the desk. She folded her hands the way people do when they are about to say something they have considered very carefully. "Mr. Moretti," she said, "I have been conducting these evaluations for 26 years. I have assessed over 3,000 patients ranging from early cognitive impairment to advanced dementia. I have testified in more than 200 guardianship proceedings." She paused. "Your cognitive function is not merely intact. It is exceptional for your age. Your memory scores place you in the 92nd percentile. Your executive reasoning is consistent with an individual decades younger. Your verbal fluency, processing speed, and attention span show no evidence of impairment whatsoever." She opened the portfolio again and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "This is my preliminary summary," she said. "The full report will be completed within 72 hours and submitted to the court. But I want you to know what it will say. It will say that in my professional opinion, Frank Anthony Moretti is fully competent to manage his own personal, medical, and financial affairs. There is no clinical basis for the appointment of a guardian." I looked at that piece of paper. I looked at the diplomas on the wall. I looked at the clock that had counted 3 hours and 17 minutes of my life. I said thank you. She said I did not need to thank her. She said the results spoke for themselves. I drove home on the Schuylkill Expressway with the windows down despite the cold. The river was gray and flat, and the trees along the banks were bare. I called Victor from the car. She said, "I am competent." I told him. 92nd percentile. He laughed. The first time I had heard Victor Ruiz laugh in months. "Frank," he said, "Morrison's fake report says you cannot remember your own address. Park's evaluation says you outperform people half your age. When we put those 2 documents side by side in front of Judge Chen, Calloway is going to wish he never took this case." I asked about the hearing. He said 14 days. 2 weeks to prepare 350 pages of evidence, coordinate 3 expert witnesses, and build a counter-petition that would turn Vanessa's conservatorship into her own criminal indictment. 2 weeks, I said. 2 weeks, he repeated. "And Frank, get some rest. The next time you sit in a chair and answer questions, it will be in a courtroom, and the whole world will be listening." I pulled into my driveway at 1:15. The Cardinal was back on the telephone wire. I stood on the porch and watched it for a while. Then I went inside, made a fresh pot of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table where the folder, with 350 pages, waited beside the metal box. 14 days. I had survived worse. Courtroom 6-12 smelled like old wood and floor polish, and the kind of silence that gathers in places where people's lives get decided by strangers. I arrived at 8:15. The hearing was scheduled for 9. Victor was already there. seated at the respondent's table on the left side of the room with two banker's boxes and a leather briefcase that I had never seen him carry before. Carmen Reyes sat in the first row behind us with her laptop and three tabbed binders. I wore my charcoal suit, white shirt, navy tie, with a single diagonal stripe, the same tie I wore to Marie's funeral. Victor had told me to dress like what I was, a decorated veteran, a retired detective, a man who built his life one honest day at a time. The petitioner's table was on the right. Richard Calloway arrived at 8:32. Tall, silver hair parted on the left, navy pinstripe suit that cost more than my monthly pension. He carried a single leather folder and moved with the confidence of a man who had never lost a case he cared about. Behind him came Vanessa. Black dress, pearl earrings, hair pulled back, no makeup except a light foundation that made her look tired, sympathetic, concerned. She had dressed like a caretaker. She had come to perform. Tony was not in the courtroom. At 9 exactly. The bailiff stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Margaret Chen, presiding. Court of Common Pleas. Philadelphia County. Orphans Court Division. In the matter of the alleged incapacitated person, Frank Anthony Moretti, Judge Chen was small. Mid-60s. Black robe over a white collar. Reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She moved to the bench with the efficiency of someone who had heard 10,000 stories and remembered every one. She opened a folder. She looked at Calloway. She looked at Victor. She looked at me. Her expression revealed nothing. Calloway stood first. His opening was precise and practiced. He described a 78-year-old man in declining health, whose cognitive function had deteriorated significantly over the past 2 years. He described a loving daughter-in-law who had observed this decline firsthand and taken on the burden of managing his affairs out of family obligation. He described a situation of imminent risk, where the respondent's remaining assets could be lost to poor decision-making and outside manipulation. He called his first witness, Dr. Robert Morrison. Morrison walked to the stand like a man who had done this before. Gray suit, wire frame glasses, thin lips. He stated his credentials. Board-certified geriatric psychiatrist, 22 years of practice. Over 500 evaluations conducted. He described his alleged examination of me on October 19th. He described cognitive deficits, short-term memory loss, confusion with dates and names, inability to perform basic financial calculations. He recommended full guardianship without reservation. Victor did not object. He sat perfectly still with his pen resting on the legal pad in front of him. He let Morrison finish. I watched his hand. It did not move. Calloway called his second witness, Patricia Hoffman, the neighbor who did not exist. She was a woman in her 50s with brown hair and a gray cardigan, who looked exactly like someone you would trust at a church fundraiser. She stated that she lived on my street and had observed me on multiple occasions wandering in my yard, appearing confused and disoriented. She said once I had asked her what day it was. She said another time I could not find my front door. I had never seen this woman in my life. She finished. Calloway thanked her. He turned to the judge and said the petitioner rested. Judge Chen looked at Victor. She said, "Counselor, your response." Victor stood slowly. He buttoned his jacket. He placed both hands on the table and leaned forward slightly the way I had seen prosecutors do when they knew the next 5 minutes would change everything. "Your Honor," he said, "I would like to begin with the respondent's independent medical evaluation, conducted 11 days ago at Penn Medicine by Dr. Penn Medicine. Helen Park, board-certified geriatric neuropsychologist with 26 years of experience and over 3,000 patient assessments." He opened the first banker's box and removed a bound document. 47 pages. He handed copies to the judge and to Calloway. Calloway's jaw tightened, but his expression held. Victor read the summary aloud. Frank Anthony Moretti demonstrated cognitive function in the 92nd percentile for his age group. memory, executive reasoning, verbal fluency, and processing speed, all within normal to superior range. No evidence of impairment. Fully competent to manage personal, medical, and financial affairs. He let the words settle. Then he turned to the judge. Your Honor, Dr. Morrison's report states he evaluated Mr. Moretti on October 19th. We have subpoenaed Dr. Morrison's appointment records, billing statements, and patient intake logs for that date. He paused. There is no record of Frank Moretti visiting Dr. Morrison's office on October 19th or any other date. No intake form. No billing code. No insurance claim. No sign-in sheet. The evaluation referenced in this petition does not exist. The courtroom shifted. Not a sound. A feeling. The air changed the way it changes before a storm, when the pressure drops and everything goes still. Calloway stood. Objection. Your Honor. Counsel is making allegations without foundation. Judge Chen looked at him over her glasses. She said, overruled. Continue, Mr. Ruiz. Victor turned to the witness declarations. He held up the statement from Patricia Hoffman. Your Honor. The petitioner's witness, Patricia Hoffman, claims to reside on Mr. Moretti's street in Germantown. We have obtained property records, utility records, and voter registration data for every residence on that block. There is no Patricia Hoffman living on that street. The house to the left of Mr. Moretti's home is owned by the Nguyen family, who have lived there for 11 years. The house to the right has been vacant for 14 months. Miss Hoffman's declaration is false. He paused again. He reached into the second banker's box. Your Honor, he said, I would now like to present evidence that the petitioner, Vanessa Clark Moretti, has systematically defrauded the respondent of approximately $2.4 million over a 24-month period through a network of 3 shell companies, forged financial documents, and unauthorized use of a durable power of attorney. He placed the first binder on the judge's bench. 352 pages. Carmen's forensic report. Bank records, corporate filings, transfer logs, the shell company structure, Clark Capital Partners, Bayshore Holdings, Atlantic Crown Development. Every dollar traced. Every lie documented. Calloway was on his feet. Your Honor, this is beyond the scope of the petition. Judge Chen removed her reading glasses. She looked at Calloway with an expression I had seen on the faces of judges who had just realized they were being used. Counselor, she said, if the person requesting guardianship is the same person accused of defrauding the respondent, I assure you, it is well within scope. Sit down. Victor reached into his briefcase. He removed a small digital device and a portable speaker. Your Honor, he said, I would like to submit into evidence a voice-activated recording made on November 9th at the respondent's home. The recording captures a conversation between Frank Moretti and Vanessa Clark Moretti, in which the petitioner admits to transferring $1.8 million of the respondent's funds into a failing real estate development without his informed consent. He looked at me. I looked at the metal box in my mind, the mahogany, the brass hinges, the purple heart resting on top of the tiny machine that had captured the truth. Victor turned back to the judge. With the court's permission, he said, I would like to play it now. Judge Chen nodded once. Proceed, she said. Victor connected the recorder to the portable speaker. He set it on the edge of the respondent's table facing the bench. The courtroom was silent. Not the silence of an empty room. The silence of a room full of people holding their breath. He pressed play. My voice came first. Vanessa, where is the money that was in my joint account with Marie? The one at First Federal. Victor told me the balance is different from what you showed me. Then hers. Calm. Practiced. Controlled. The money has been moved into safer investments. Market volatility required aggressive repositioning. I watched Vanessa at the petitioner's table. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her back was straight. Her face was composed. She looked like a woman, listening to a weather report. But I had spent 30 years reading people who were trying not to react. I watched her thumbs. They pressed against each other so hard the knuckles turned white. The recording continued. My voice asking how much. Her voice deflecting. A portion. My voice asking again. Her voice yielding. Approximately 1.8 million. Judge Chen leaned forward. She placed her reading glasses on her nose and looked at the speaker as if the machine itself were testifying. My voice asked where the rest went. Operating costs. Legal fees. Consulting. Standard business expenses. My voice asked if Tony knew the full amount. 3 seconds of silence on the recording. 3 seconds that filled the courtroom like water filling a basement. Then her voice. He knows what he needs to know. Victor let the recording play for another 4 minutes. Vanessa explaining the Atlantic City project. Vanessa describing the projected returns. Vanessa asking me to sign the restructuring documents. Vanessa saying trust is not the issue when I told her I wanted Victor to review them first. Then he pressed stop. The courtroom exhaled. Not literally. But something released. The stenographer's fingers had stopped moving. The bailiff near the door had shifted his weight forward. Judge Chen removed her glasses and set them on the bench. Victor turned to the judge. Your Honor, he said. The recording you just heard was made on November 9th at the respondent's home in Germantown. It is 47 minutes in total. What I played represents the key admissions. The petitioner admits to moving $1.8 million of the respondent's retirement funds into a real estate development without his knowledge or informed consent. She admits that the respondent's son, Anthony Moretti, does not know the full extent of the financial transfers, and she attempts to pressure the respondent into signing documents that would consolidate his remaining assets under her control. He picked up Carmen's binder from the table. The one with the blue tab. This is supported by the forensic financial analysis conducted by Carmen Reyes, a certified forensic accountant and former auditor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Her report documents a 3-layer corporate structure designed to move the respondent's funds from his personal accounts into a failing commercial real estate project in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He opened the binder to a diagram Carmen had prepared. 3 boxes connected by arrows. Clark Capital Partners, LLC at the top. Bayshore Holdings, LLC, in the middle. Atlantic Crown Development Corporation at the bottom. Each box contained dates, dollar amounts, and account numbers. Layer 1, Victor said. Clark Capital Partners, a Delaware limited liability company with Vanessa Clark Moretti as sole member. Over 24 months, approximately $2.4 million was transferred from the respondent's joint checking and brokerage accounts into this entity using the durable power of attorney granted to the petitioner. Layer 2. Bayshore Holdings, also a Delaware LLC, registered to a UPS store address in Wilmington. No employees, no operating revenue, no legitimate business activity. Its sole function was to receive funds from Clark Capital and forward them to the final destination. Layer 3. Atlantic Crown Development Corporation, registered in the Bahamas. A luxury condominium project on the Atlantic City Boardwalk. Currently $5.1 million over budget, 18 months behind schedule. Subject to a stop work order from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection due to soil contamination including lead, mercury, and arsenic, exceeding federal safety thresholds. The project CEO is Gerald Whitfield, who has been previously investigated for securities fraud. The CFO listed on corporate filings is Vanessa Clark Moretti. Victor closed the binder. He looked at Calloway. Then he looked at the judge. Your Honor, the woman who filed this petition asking to be appointed guardian of Frank Moretti's estate is the same woman who has already taken $2.4 million from that estate. She did not protect his assets. She funneled them into a contaminated construction site run by a man with a fraud investigation in his past. And when the project collapsed and the money disappeared, she came to this court and asked for legal authority over whatever was left. Calloway stood. Your Honor, I request a recess. My client needs to confer with counsel. Judge Chen looked at him. The expression on her face was one I had seen before. On the faces of judges who understood they had been brought into something they did not appreciate. She removed her glasses slowly. You will have your recess, counselor. But I want to be very clear. This court takes allegations of fraud, perjury, and financial exploitation with the utmost seriousness. If the evidence presented today is substantiated, the consequences will extend far beyond the outcome of this petition. She turned to Victor. Counselor Ruiz, do you have additional evidence to present? Victor buttoned his jacket. He stood at his full height, which was not tall but in that moment seemed to fill the room. Yes, Your Honor. One more piece. And if the court permits, I believe it will be the most significant evidence presented today. He reached into the briefcase and removed a clear plastic sleeve containing a single document. Even from where I sat, I could see the header. Last Will and Testament of Marie Rivera Moretti. He held it up so the judge could see. Your Honor, he said, we have obtained a revised version of the respondent's late wife's will. This document was filed with the surrogate's office in 2008. It significantly alters the distribution of the Moretti estate, redirecting primary assets to the petitioner. It bears what appears to be the signature of Marie Rivera Moretti. He paused. He looked at Vanessa. She was no longer still. Her right hand gripped the edge of the table. Her left hand was in her lap, hidden, but I could see the tremor in her shoulder. Your Honor, Victor said. Marie Rivera Moretti did not sign this document. A certified forensic document examiner has confirmed that the signature is a forgery. The courtroom did not breathe. The stenographer's hands hovered above the keys. Calloway's pen was frozen in midair. Judge Chen's eyes moved from the document to Vanessa and stayed there. Victor placed the plastic sleeve on the bench. I would like to call our forensic document examiner, Daniel Okafor, to the stand, he said. I sat in my chair with my hands flat on my knees. I looked at the document on the bench. Marie's name. Written by a hand that was not hers. Used to steal from the man she loved. Filed in a courthouse 2 miles from the cemetery where she rested. I thought about the cardinal on the telephone wire. I thought about the metal box on the mantel. I thought about Marie, polishing the brass hinges every Sunday morning, and I waited for the truth to finish what it had started. Daniel Okafor took the stand the way a man walks into a room he has entered 1,000 times. Calm, upright, dark gray suit, burgundy tie, a thin black portfolio placed on the ledge without looking down. Former FBI, 23 years in the Bureau's Question Documents Unit. Over 700 examinations. Over 160 court testimonies. Victor handed him the plastic sleeve. Okafor removed the revised will, placed it under the overhead document camera, and the image filled the courtroom monitor. Marie Rivera Moretti. The signature on screen like a wound. He began with 7 known samples. 2 birthday cards. A signed insurance form. A mortgage application. A handwritten letter to her mother. A voter registration card. A hospital consent form from her final admission. Each appeared on the monitor beside the question's signature. He pointed with a metal stylus. The known samples share consistent characteristics. The capital M leans approximately 4 degrees left. The lowercase I is dotted slightly forward of the stem. The cross-stroke on the lowercase t curves upward at roughly 12 degrees. Pen pressure is moderate and even consistent with a medium-point ballpoint. He moved to the question's signature. This signature deviates in 3 areas. The capital M is perfectly vertical. The dot above the I is centered directly above the stem. The T cross-stroke is flat. Additionally, spectral analysis indicates a fine-point rollerball pen. In 15 years of samples, Marie Moretti exclusively used medium-point ballpoints. He looked at Judge Chen. It is my professional opinion, stated to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, that this signature was not written by Marie Rivera Moretti. It is a skilled but identifiable forgery. The monitor held both signatures side by side. Marie's real hand on the left, the imitation on the right. One written with love over a kitchen table, the other written with calculation over a stolen future. Calloway declined to cross-examine. The science was the science. Victor turned toward the back of the courtroom. The double doors opened. Tony walked in. My son, 49 years old. Navy suit I had never seen. Tie slightly crooked the way his ties had been crooked since I first taught him to knot one at 14. Face pale. Eyes red. He had been crying, not just today. For days. He walked down the center aisle. He did not look at Vanessa. He did not look at Calloway. He looked at me. Only me. And in that look I saw something I had not seen since he was 9, and broke the neighbor's window with a baseball and came home terrified and told the truth before I asked. Victor spoke. Your Honor, Anthony Moretti was listed as a supporting party on the petition. He has come forward to withdraw his support and make a statement. Judge Chen said you may approach. Tony sat in the witness stand. His hands were shaking. He placed them flat on the ledge, the same way I place mine on the kitchen table when I need to steady myself. He learned that from me, without knowing he learned it. Victor asked one question. Did you understand the full extent of the financial transfers when you signed the petition? Tony looked at the judge. He looked at me. No, sir. His voice cracked. I was told my father's accounts had been restructured for his protection. I was told the investments were sound. I was told he was showing confusion and the conservatorship would keep him safe. I signed because I believed her. He paused. I was wrong. He looked at Vanessa. She did not look back. She stared at the table, hands flat, fingers spread, as if the wood were the only thing keeping her from falling through the floor. Tony turned back. I love my father. He built everything I have. He gave me everything I am. I let someone use that against him. Frank Moretti is the sharpest, strongest, most competent man I have ever known. And I am asking for his forgiveness. He looked at me. I looked at him. 49 years. The boy on my shoulders through the Italian market. The teenager who slammed doors and apologized every time. The man who married a woman I tried to love because he loved her. I nodded once. That was enough. Judge Chen allowed a 60-second recess. No one moved. The stenographer wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. The judge returned. She opened her folder. Glasses on. This court has reviewed the petition filed by Vanessa Clark Moretti. This court has heard testimony from a fabricated medical evaluation, a fraudulent witness declaration, and a forged legal document. This court has also reviewed an independent evaluation confirming the respondent is fully competent, a forensic report documenting systematic theft of approximately $2.4 million, and an audio recording in which the petitioner admits to unauthorized transfers. She looked at Vanessa. The petition for guardianship is denied. She closed the folder. Furthermore, this court refers the matter to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation. Charges to be considered include elder financial abuse, forgery of a legal instrument, perjury, conspiracy to defraud, and wire fraud. The petitioner shall surrender her passport within 48 hours and is prohibited from contacting the respondent or accessing any of his accounts. She looked at the bailiff. Is there a representative from the district attorney's office present? A woman in a dark suit stood from the back row. Assistant District Attorney Williams, Your Honor. We have reviewed the referral documents and prepared an arrest warrant pending the court's ruling. Judge Chen nodded. Proceed. The bailiff walked to the petitioner's table. Vanessa did not stand. She sat still, pearls catching the overhead light, eyes fixed on a point beyond the wall, beyond the courtroom, beyond anything. Please stand, ma'am. She stood. Her face held. Her legs held. Everything held except her hands. which trembled at her sides like leaves on a branch already cut. The handcuffs clicked. The sound echoed through courtroom 612 the way a period ends a sentence. She was escorted through the side door without looking at Tony, without looking at me, without looking at anyone. The room emptied slowly. Victor placed his hand on my shoulder. Carmen closed her laptop. Tony stood at the end of the aisle. He had not moved since leaving the stand. I walked to him. We stood 2 feet apart, in the silence of a room where justice had been delivered and a family broken and rebuilt in the same hour. He opened his mouth. I raised my hand. "Not here," I said. "Come to the house. I will make coffee." We walked out together, father and son, through the marble hallway, down the stone steps, into November air that smelled like the city I had protected for 30 years. The city that had just protected me.